In general terms, the early patriarchal history divides into two parts: the life of Abraham in chapter 11, verse 10 through chapter 25, verse 18, and the life of Jacob in chapter 25, verse 19 through chapter 37, verse 1. Now, this twofold division may be surprising at first because in Scripture we frequently hear mention of three early patriarchs: Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So we might have reasonably expected the literary structure of these chapters to be threefold as well. First, telling us about Abraham, then about Isaac, and then about Jacob. But in actuality, no portion of the early patriarchal history is devoted to Isaac as the main figure. Instead, he serves only as a transitional figure. His life is told first as a part of Abraham's life, and then as a part of Jacob's life. And as a result, the early patriarchal history actually divides into only two main parts: the life of Abraham and then the life of Jacob. Our concern in this series is with the first half of the patriarchal period, Moses' record of Father Abraham. So let's take a closer look at the structure of Abraham's life as it is presented in Genesis chapter 11, verse 10 through chapter 25, verse 18. Now that we've seen where the life of Abraham fits within the overarching structure of Genesis, we should turn to our next concern: the structure of Abraham's life in Genesis chapter 11, verse 10 through chapter 25, verse 18. To explore the structure of Abraham's life, we'll look at these chapters on two levels. On the one hand, we'll simply identify the basic units or episodes of Abraham's life. And on the other hand, we'll examine how these various episodes have been arranged into the portrait of Abraham we have in Genesis. Let's first identify the basic units or episodes of Abraham's life. Moses wrote about Abraham's life in 17 basic segments or episodes. First, Abraham's favored lineage in chapter 11, verses 10 through 26, a genealogy that describes Abraham's family heritage. This passage is followed by an account of Abraham's failing father in chapter 11, verse 27 through 32. A second genealogy that describes Abraham's travels with his father Terah. Abraham's migration to Canaan in chapter 12, verses 1 through 9, the story of Abraham's initial call and travel to the Promised Land. Abraham's deliverance from Egypt in chapter 12, verses 10 through 20, the time when Abraham sojourned in Egypt and God delivered him. Abraham's conflict with Lot in chapter 13, verses 1 through 18, the story of struggle between Abraham's men and Lot's men. Abraham's rescue of Lot in chapter 14, verses 1 through 24, the time when Abraham went to war to rescue Lot from kings who had captured him. Abraham's covenant promises in chapter 15, verses 1 through 21, the account of God's covenant assuring Abraham that he would have many descendants and a permanent homeland. Abraham's failure with Hagar in chapter 16, verses 1 through 16, the time when Abraham had a child, Ishmael, with Sarah's handmaiden, Hagar. Abraham's covenant requirements in chapter 17, verses 1 through 27, the account of God's covenant that reminded Abraham of the necessity of loyalty to the commands of God. Sodom and Gomorrah in chapter 18, verse 1 through chapter 19, verse 38, the story of the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah and Lot's rescue from that destruction. Abraham's intercession for Abimelech in chapter 20, verses 1 through 18, the time when Abraham prayed for Abimelech the Philistine. Abraham's sons, Isaac and Ishmael, in chapter 21, verses 1 through 21, the story of Isaac's birth and the expulsion of Ishmael from Abraham's family. Abraham's treaty with Abimelech in chapter 21, verses 22 through 34. the time when Abraham entered into an agreement with Abimelech over land and water rights. Abraham's test in chapter 22, verses 1 through 24, the well-known episode in which God called Abraham to sacrifice his son Isaac. Abraham's burial property in chapter 23, verses 1 through 20, the story of Sarah's death and the purchase of a burial site. A wife for Abraham's son Isaac in chapter 24, verses 1 through 67, the time when Rebekah became Isaac's wife. And finally, Abraham's death and heir in chapter 25, verses 1 through 18, the closing story of Abraham's passing and the record of his descendants.